Today we're going to be looking at marker pointillism techniques. Now you may have heard of pointillism in painting, where artists use tiny little dots or even marks, but we're going to be using just simple Crayola markers. So you can use any type of marker, but you do want that marker to be able to have a fine point depending on how you use it. So the whole idea behind this worksheet here, which is the first worksheet you're going to practice with, is value. So we're going to have different values that we make. These are flat values up here at the top. You're going to make flat values, different flat values with the black marker, from dark to medium to light. And then you're going to make different flat values by blending two colors together. This concept is called optical blending. So it relies on the trick of the eye. It's not just to blend adjacent dots of colors into one mass, but to actually blend two or more different adjacent colors into a solid mass or color. So what's that really mean? It means that if I look at one of these boxes where I've used two different colors of dots, that if I blur my eyes or kind of squint at it, that it should create a brand new color. So that's optical blending. That's all about the top half here, which is flat value, an even consistent value throughout the box. So really, the key to marker pointillism and doing this well is using a controlled dot. Sometimes we call this a stipple dot. So with your markers, you're going to want to make sure that you have your marker, you're holding it pretty straight up and down. We don't want to do this. This is going to give more of a blob. It's not consistent. So you're going to be holding it not straight up and down. You can, but it's going to make it a lot more difficult. But if you hold it at just a slight angle, you'll probably do pretty well. The other thing that you need to think about is controlling your hand motion. So this is going to be a slow process. So if I see you doing this, this is not going to cut it. That is not going to allow our eye to evenly blend those colors together. So that's the bit about technique that you need to know as far as color blending and values. Really what we're relying on is how close or far apart the dots are. So the first thing you're going to do up here with your black marker is you're going to evenly space the dots apart all the way up to the edge of the box, so that as I look at that, as I squint my eyes or I blend with my eyes, it looks like it's an overall light value. Some people like to be very mathematical or left brain about this, and you can do that also, but just realize if you do it this way, if you get one of those dots out of place, then it's not going to look like it has an overall light value or consistent value. So the next box over of dots. When I compare those two and I kind of blur my eyes, I should be able to see a difference in value. This one's slightly darker. So I'm going to keep going, keep going, keep going. I'm generally trying to match the examples underneath. Then what I'm doing is I'm going to work on optical blending, which is really the crux or the heart of pointillism. Pointillism is when you take those two different colors and you put them side by side, and they're going to create a new color when your eye blends them together. So up here I have some general notations of what colors to mix together. When you're finished with these, you do not want to have much of the white paper showing, so you want it to be pretty close together. The other thing I recommend is that you place the lighter color first. So I have red and I have blue. Red's a little bit lighter than blue, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to consistently space all the red dots. Then I'm going to come back with blue dots in between. Then I'm going to come back with red, then blue, till I have most of the spaces filled in. So each time I'm switching colors, I do want to make sure that the dots are consistently spaced. It is okay if my blue dot touches my red dot. That's going to happen when I cover most of the paper. Do want to get all the way up to the edge. So I just like to hold both markers in one hand, and then I can go back and forth. So now I'm getting the red dots a little bit closer together. It's a controlled dot. I'm thinking about where I'm placing it. It is a random pattern, but I am being very mindful about how close or far apart those dots are. So as I look at it and as I kind of blur my eyes, I still see the separate colors. So I'm going to continue to come back, switching between blue and red until I have a consistent value and a consistent color across that box. I'm being neat, using good craftsmanship, controlled stipple dot, getting all the way up to the edge. So as I look at that and as I kind of blur my eye, about done, it looks a little lighter in the center here. So I'm going to add a few more red dots. All right, don't forget to get all the way up to the edges. I think I'm done with that one. Then I'm going to go on to the next one. Green and brown together. Usually, remember, I'm going to put the lighter color down first, so I'm going to do all the green and then brown in between, move on to yellow and red, orange and blue, blue and yellow. So once I'm done with that, then it's time to look at the transitional values underneath. All right, so now we're going to look at the bottom half of this worksheet, which is all about transitional value. If you notice on here, it gives you a good definition for transitional value, a gradual fading value within a space. It is used to show three-dimensional form. So the whole idea, there's an example right under here, is that we have a value that changes within a space evenly and consistently as if it's fading. So you're going to want to follow the example underneath. For number 3, it tells you to use only black dots, create a transitional value scale that gradually fades from black to white. I do think it is better to start at the dark side rather than the light side. And again, we're using that even consistent spacing. Over here on the left, where it's going to be the darkest, I probably will not see any of the paper showing through. Then as I move to the right, then I'm gradually going to be placing my dots farther and farther apart. The nice thing about stipple or pointillism is that it really lends itself to transitional value. Sometimes if you try to do a fading value in graphite, you'll find that you get strips or bands of value. It doesn't gradually fade. But you have a lot of control with stipple to get it to fade. So now I'm getting into the darker area. See how close those dots are. Getting all the way next to the edge. I do want to be neat, avoiding getting outside of the box. And again, I'm following the values under here. So it's pretty dark. Nearly solid over here. It's not going to be the same if you just try to color it solid and then try to fade. It is important to build up with dots the same dot that you use. If you start being really messy, using the side, or even careless, it's going to show. It's not going to be as neat. So I'm going to continue across this box so that they gradually get farther and farther apart and that my value fades. I think you get the idea. You're going to follow what's underneath. Now here we're creating transition of colors. So if I look back at my example, I see that I have a warm color fading into a cool color. And then I have a warm and cool color together, and they're fading to white. I have one color that I fade into brown, and I have either a warm to warm or a cool to cool. So how do I do that? Is really I just do opposing transitional value scales. So I'm going to take one color, warm colors, they remind us of the sun or fire, things that actually are warm to the touch, red, orange, yellow in this case. If you have a pink, that would be a warm color also. So the idea is that I want it pure red, because that is the warm color I chose, up here at the top. And that as I move down, they're going to get farther and farther away until the value gradually fades into white, getting it as close together as I can up here. So I'm taking my red and I'm fading that way. Close, close, close. Again, I'm squinting my eyes to see if the value is blending with the white of the paper. So the dot and the paper, I want them evenly spaced. I'm not done, but I'm just gonna move on. So now I'm gonna choose a cool color. In this case, I'm gonna choose purple, and I'm doing the opposite. So I said they were opposing transitional value scales. So I'm going to start with purple really close together down here. And as purple goes up, it's going to fade out to white, the white of the paper. Or in this case, it's going to fade to red. So this is going to be really close together, almost solid purple. Then it's going to get farther apart until I see the color gradually transition into red. So I'm not quite done, but this is something common that happens. Look at, I have this value or closeness of dots here. I have this closeness of dots here. They're about the same. But in the middle where they overlap, I see a lot more white. I don't want that to happen. I want it to have the same number of dots, closeness together. I just want the types of dots to change. So if I look at that and it's still a little lighter in the middle, I'm going to add more dots. Since it's in the middle, it's probably about half red, half purple. So that is a common mistake that happens in the middle. Don't forget to get all the way up to the edges. So I want a consistent value. I still am noticing it's a little light down here, that there's more white showing in this area than there is any other place in this rectangle. So I'm going to add to it. And that is pretty much it.